All right. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for hopping on to this month's Industry 30 with Kojo. I'm happy to introduce our speaker today, Ryan, who's a strategic account executive with Kojo and presenting on implementing business software and driving adoption. You do have the ability to unmute yourself. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. And then this is being recorded and will be uploaded on the chapter's website at conclusion. If you need anything in the meantime, use the chat feature and I'll give it to Ryan. Take it away.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Rob. And thank you guys for having me. I'm super excited to present to you guys today. So today we're going to be talking about um, a trade contractor's guide to implementing software. And before I dive in, well, I've got this art overview slide on what we're going to talk about today, but quick background on myself. I used to work for a general contractor up in Boston. I'm still located in Boston. I've got a beautiful fiance and a small dog that keeps me on my heels. So that's just a little bit about me. The reason why I'm in construction tech is because I experienced all the firsthand pain of a lot of the things I was doing in the field, working at this general contractor. And I've been in construction tech for about 3-4 years now, driving some simple solutions that solve bigger problems for the industry. So what we're going to talk about, number one, like why is technology necessary in this industry today and why it's so important right now. Number two, when to identify, like when is the right time to actually implement a solution, and getting buy-in from the key stakeholders in your organization, and then what that tech adoption journey looks like. From starting with identifying that pain point, and selling the vision to your broader company, to actually managing all of these risks during the implementation, because implementations aren't the easiest thing to do, especially if you're implementing across the field staff. And then driving adoption, and then measuring results at the very end. Um, we'll cover some tips from active tech users today, and then we'll kind of sum everything up on why this is so important in 2024, what's happening in the market right now. And I think we'll have plenty of time for questions at the very end of this. So if you do have questions, hold on to them. We'll have plenty of time to review everything, and we'll dive right in. Before I dive in, we also are raffling off a $100 gift card to Home Depot for all the folks that were able to join today, and we'll do that after this session. So why is technology necessary? So the industry, and everyone knows this, the industry has been the laggard across the board on tech adoption. There are a lot of reasons for that. It's the slowest industry in the US to adopt new technologies, and it has been for quite some time. Labor productivity in construction increased only 0.1%. I don't even know if you can call that an increase, right? From 1947 to 2010, versus the overall economy, which is 1.9%. Technology is so necessary, especially in 2024, because there are some amazing technologies out there that actually have a true business impact to your organization today. That started with the advent of smartphones and iPads in the field. Now you can actually connect your field that is directly on their projects, on their own islands per se, with the overall organization to measure performance and efficiency. And to seek out and implement tech that boosts, productivity and profitability. Obviously, whenever you're evaluating software or new technologies, you're trying to either streamline certain activities and make your people more productive, or you're trying to save money, right? And if you can identify a challenge or a pain point within your organization that allows you to do both with the technology, that's the golden winner. So labor productivity in the industry, feel like a lot of people have seen a similar graph like this, where unfortunately construction is at the very bottom here, dating back to 1950.
Hey,
Um,
Ryan,
yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Could you share your screen if you have a presentation? I'm
Oh
not
yeah.
sure it's not being shared
Are
right
you
now.
okay?
We can see
I
it.
can I
You
can
can
You
see
see
guys
it?
can
it.
see it.
Okay. All right. Maybe I'm the only one.
Yeah.
There it is.
I'll dictate to you later.
There it is. All right. All good. Sorry,
It
Ryan.
might be
Continue.
because you're in Starbucks, Rob. Maybe
That
you
might
don't
be
have
it.
that second monitor.
Probably it. Go ahead.
All right, good. So this is not news to anybody, but it's a good reminder that our industry really hasn't evolved in the way a lot of the other industries out there, especially agriculture and even manufacturing, have blown up in terms of being efficient with their workforce. And there are a lot of reasons for that. I think before we dive into this slide, I think a lot of the reasons have to do with just the fields, and how challenging like these projects really are. Every project's so different than the next project, or the project before. Of course there are similarities, but I think everyone can agree that construction at the project level is organized chaos. You need great leaders, and really good technology in order to make a difference. Otherwise, it's not going to move the needle. Um, so when is the right time for a new tech solution? I think if you guys are evaluating your business and identifying different departments and their challenges within the departments, um, you first need to align your team on your vision, for the future. Um, and start there before you start looking around for technology, because there's so much stuff out there today. It's really hard to identify what is the best technology for you given your company and your goals, as well as your current tech stack. Because unfortunately, right now in construction, there isn't a solution that's a one size fits all, that does everything that you need it to do from pre-construction to closeout. There's some great tools that do a lot of things, but you really need to, start building your tech stack that is going to set you up for the future, and aligning your team on that vision, and knocking out one challenge at a time and prioritizing those challenges, I think is so key. um, and then next would be buy-in from your team. If you've identified that pain point or that challenge that you're trying to solve, identifying then the key stakeholders within your organization is so important to get their buy-in, especially on your vision before you start looking around. Because then they can be aligned with, where you want to take your company or where you want to take your organization, so that when you start evaluating technology and you start looking into it, it's not a complete surprise to them. Um, so identify the relevant stakeholders that you need to ensure, and that's so important as soon as you do choose a solution, because they are going to be your champions and they're going to drive adoption across your organization. So if you don't have buy-in from them, it's going to be incredibly challenging for you to, actually move something forward, and find that return on your investment. So, um, another thing is just align your team with an actual roadmap, and being realistic with that roadmap, I think is huge. Because a lot of, and we'll get into it later down in the presentation, but a lot of technology providers will, promise so many different things, especially during implementation, but being realistic with your team and how you're going to roll something out, especially if you're rolling it out to the field staff and the project teams, is so important to do. When you are getting buy-in from your team, it's actually a great way to get buy-in from your team by not like imposing these unrealistic expectations on what this new technology is going to do. Um, and being honest and clear with that roadmap is big. Okay, so we'll take a pause. Here's some survey results. So what are the most common bottlenecks you've seen when introducing new technologies? Number one is buy-in, right? So buy-in's huge. So 12% of contractor leaders say their biggest bottleneck is securing organization-wide buy-in on any new tech. I don't think there's one contractor out there that would be able to get 100% buy-in across their entire organization. That's just not realistic. But in terms of buy-in, you do need buy-in from your key stakeholders and your leaders. So people who are going to end up being the champions and moving things forward and driving results, those are the key people to focus on when you're bringing people on board in any evaluation. Now, also, 38% of people said that a huge bottleneck is implementation delays. Let's face it, everybody's been burnt by some technology provider before, especially in this industry. It's just been so challenging to find the right technology and then drive adoption. And that's because, I don't think for so long technology could really touch the field or, drive efficiencies in the field like in 2024 today. The good thing is we are moving forward and it's only going to get better. But implementation delays is a real concern. And that's why it's so important to have a game plan, not just a game plan that, the salesperson at the technology providers, telling you guys you should move forward with, but really your own playbook of how to implement across your teams. Because, like you guys know your organizations inside and out. You are really the only ones that know how something is going to, implement and how you're going to drive adoption. Providers can be helpful since they've worked with so many contractors in the past. So definitely ask key questions in your evaluation about how you drive implementation and what your trainings are like. But also you're gonna want to kind of build out that playbook with the key people in order to be successful. And that leads me to training challenges. So 67% say their top challenge is actually training the teams to use the tech. It's challenging, especially with the field. And this industry is pretty interesting right now because it's almost like there are two big groups of people on these project teams and in the field. There's the older generation that's been doing things, traditional ways for so long, for a couple of decades, and they are phasing out. Right, they're getting ready for retirement, and then there's this, there's a wide gap between that generation and then this new generation that is ready to use technology today. They grew up using technology. They almost grew up with a smartphone in their hand at this point. So leveraging your two groups of persona within the field and getting buy-in from maybe the younger generation, but also those key people within that older generation that really embrace technology and really embrace doing things maybe more efficiently so that they can get their job done faster is really huge. All right, so I think it's really easy, and I think with any change, you really want to simplify this whole process. Number one, you identify the pain and you're selling the vision across your organization. Number two is your implementation stage and actually, moving things forward. And then number three would be, to drive that adoption across your organization and then measure results. And in terms of the first stage, identifying these pain points, Um, really ask you're going to have to ask your project teams, because a lot of you guys aren't in the weeds on a daily basis, or maybe you are, but it's really helpful to understand what people in your organization are dealing with on a daily basis. Um, when I worked for this general contractor, I was on my own project team, right? My own island. And there were a lot of things that we were doing, in terms of managing our procurement logs and all these different spreadsheets, filing all of our important documents in job folders, or emails, right? And people at the very top, whenever I were to kind of express what I'm going through, um, don't necessarily understand it because they're not doing it on a daily basis, or they had done it years ago, and that was just the way things were done back in the day. And there weren't cool technologies that really streamline things that would give time back to me, for me to do all the million other things I needed to do as a project manager. So really understanding like what those pain points are, and maybe not necessarily your pain points, but your project team's pain points or different departments' pain points, and understanding what they are and then measuring the impact is how you're going to be able to prioritize, solving some of these challenges. So that's the next thing. It's quantifying, what these challenges are. This is huge. This is going to allow you to actually prioritize things. And like I was saying at the very beginning of this, whenever you're looking for a solution, to solve one of your challenges, you're going to want to look for a solution that saves your team a ton of time, right? Because that's going to free up your team to do all the other things that they need to be doing, and, possibly even, focus more on, driving production in the field. That would be number one. But number two is saving money at the end of the day. And we all know in construction, there's so much money in this industry. There's so much opportunity for improvement. And then determine the stakeholders, like I was talking about, include those people, in your conversations, and identify all those pains, their motivations, and even their fears and what they're experiencing. Another big thing is, companies today are leveraging technology to drive, people to stay within their organization. And that's huge. I mean, they're coming into work, with a smartphone in their hands. They're able to order, food, groceries, anything they want off of Amazon. There are all these amazing technologies that allow them to do what they need to do on a daily basis in their home life. But then they get to the trailer, the job site, and some things are just manual and, painstakingly, challenging for, just because, like, the industry hasn't really caught on to some of these things. So driving technology and making life better for your people, is a great motivation for leaders like you guys. All right, so implementation risks. On average, vendors overwhelmingly promise implementation and onboarding between like 1 to 3 months. If you talk to any salesperson or any person, that's the face of some technology provider, they're going to say that, our implementation time is between 30 and 90 days, right? But the reality of it is that most implementations take around double that, so between 3 to 6 months. So it's really important for you to, um, I understand your company and how you're going to roll out something new, and have a playbook for that. But be like really honest, about it, and not take, whatever the technology provider is saying, because your organization better than they do, but you can leverage their knowledge of training and implementing the technology, because they've done it so many times. So if you come together as a unified force, you're going to be able to drive adoption, and not have a long and arduous journey of implementing a new tech stack. And this is just what our survey came out with. So, for technologies that are like really easy to adopt, trying to think of some off the top of my head, but stuff that doesn't require, the entire organization to fully adopt it in order for you to see your return. Those things they're easier to implement, right? So, when a technology provider is saying like, yeah, it'll take a couple of weeks, generally like that does become reality. So in this first bucket right here, a little bit under 20% of the time, some technology provider is saying that, yeah, it's going to take under a month. And that generally ends up happening because that's just the nature of, whatever that technology is. It's, easier when you're not rolling it out to a lot of people in the field, for example. And it's just a focus group of people. There's certainly a ton of technologies out there that are niche products that focus on a certain department or even a certain persona within your organization. But then once it gets to bigger implementation times from like 1 to 3 months, the technology provider is likely going to say that it will take between 30 and 90 days. And in fact, like that's just it's not even the reality, right? So, and a lot of that has to do with not having a true playbook, and really working with that solution provider. But also it's it's challenging to do. I mean, it's challenging to actually implement across the field, and it's challenging to get everybody onboarded within a short period of time, just because of the nature of construction. Everybody's on their own island on these projects. Realistically, when it's a larger rollout, if you have a larger company, you're going to see results within 3 to 6 months. But once you get there, once you have everybody onboarded and you're driving to 95, 100% adoption rate, that's when you're going to start seeing the results that you expected to see. So getting there is so important. That's not to say you can't do this stuff within 30 to 90 days. I've seen it happen so many times, but those companies really have a good playbook. They understand the true champions of who is going to be responsible for rolling something out, and they execute it well with the provider. All right, and managing risk. So, I've talked about this a lot. Make sure there's a battle-tested implementation plan. If you guys have rolled out technology before and it was successful, use the same plan. You're going to have to make some modifications depending on the people that are involved, of course. But if you've done this successfully, stick to that plan, right? A lot of the time it's we've identified a key stakeholder that is really going to own this, and drive adoption for us, or a handful of people. And identifying those key people is so important, because they're going to be the ones to take it, build the plan, and work with the provider. Vendors acknowledge that specialty contractors are not a cookie cutter business. They listen and respond to feedback. And, anybody who is using a new technology, a lot of people want to do their job better or more efficiently. Nobody wants to be on the job site, for an extra 2 hours at the end of the day, just because they're, putting together their list of materials that they have compiled, from all their other foremen across the project. If there's a better way, most people are open to hearing it. They might be hesitant because they had a bad experience with technology in the past, they might be hesitant for one reason or another, it's really important to understand those hesitations, and listen to them, and before you're just throwing a new product, or a new way of doing things, in their face. And there are three critical goals here. So setting expectations with your stakeholders is number one. So once you've selected that solution, making sure that your stakeholders who are going to be responsible for driving adoption know what those expectations are in terms of timeline, and be honest and realistic with your team, because your team is going to want to drive adoption. They're likely very passionate about solving a problem. But if you're unrealistic with those expectations, it's really going to hurt their motivation in a way for getting it, across the board. And make sure that these stakeholders remain bought in even after you've made that decision, right? It's one thing to be in like an evaluation of some solution. Everybody is nodding their head, saying, yeah, this looks great. This is awesome. And then as soon as you get the product, it's like, oh, this is not so great for this reason, or, I can't do this because of this thing that the product doesn't do. Keep listening to your people, and raise those red flags or those flags up to the technology provider as soon as possible. Communication, just like on any job site, is so key. Communication to your technology provider is also so important, because otherwise they're not going to understand the challenges that you're actually experiencing rolling something out. And in a lot of cases, they can be extremely helpful in providing a solution for you. I mean, at the end of the day, these are providers in the construction industry. A lot of people on the technology side in this industry also do come from the industry and might have thought of some of these problems, or possibly even workarounds with the product that allow you to do what you need to do. Leverage them. Allow time for trainings and onboarding. So just like, when I was saying be realistic with onboarding and training, definitely allow more than enough time for these trainings, and figure out good ways of, corralling your team, especially if it's the field staff, in a way that you can get everybody trained and up and running. The cool thing with being in 2024 is there's a lot of like useful online education out there, especially with technology providers, where they've documented, resources on how to do things, in a lot of cases, videos of how to do things, and they've built different modules for them to walk through and learn on their own, that actually tracks their progress. That couldn't, get flagged up to leaders in your organization or yourself. But be honest and realistic with how long this is going to take. Those are just the three goals whenever you're looking at any implementation. And here are like some of the groups that struggle. I mean, this is no surprise to people, I think, but number one, it's the field crew. And it's not because like the field crew doesn't understand technology, right? It's only been so recent. It's only been like less than a decade where, this technology is actually touching them, because they have smartphones and iPads in the field, or a lot of them do, or they've, got their laptop on the job site. But I think with the field, it's you have so many different types of people and types of personalities and different nationalities, and it's challenging to get everybody on board with doing things, because they're also so isolated on their job site. So figuring out like key dates, where you come together as a team, or even identifying like the people who are going to adopt this immediately, identify those folks, but then also identify the folks where they might have more of a challenge adopting something new, and focus on them early on and focus on them with the solution provider and get those people trained, um, is that's when I've seen the best implementations is when we've identified the core user group or the champions that are going to take this right away and they're going to run with it. But then also the people that might have a more challenging time, train them up and running, because once you get those folks, the tech laggards or whatever you want to call them, the people who are just, slower to adopt, once they're using it and raving about it, and talking about it because people talk, um, that's when you're going to get full adoption across the board. These other groups too, most more tenured employees, maybe the non-tech savvy employees. I think accounting's on here as well, just because accounting processes have been the same for so long, and there's no changing these processes either. Construction's unique in the way that accounting is done, and the technology to do all of your bookkeeping really hasn't changed much since maybe the mid 90s, early 2000s, with a lot of these enterprise or these ERPs that are out there. So if there's anything that touches accounting, it doesn't like change everything of what they're doing. That's huge, because there's a lot of inefficiencies that I'm seeing in accounting today. And at the end of the day, this has a direct impact to your bottom line, especially if you're paying invoices for all this material that you're purchasing, and if you don't have a good way of validating invoices that are coming in, then you're likely there's money just falling through the cracks, right? And identifying those pieces of your accounting process that could be improved, that doesn't overhaul the whole what they're doing on a daily basis, is much easier to get adoption. All right, so just some tips. So number one, support your teammates as they learn, right? Like learning anything new is always a challenge, right? There's always a learning curve with, especially technology, but with anything, support your team, and listen to them. And if there's, a specific reason as to why they can't use something, understand it, and see if that there's, a workarounds that they can be doing that's not too far off when what the ideal state is for them. For larger companies, and when I say larger companies, I think for subcontractors, I'd say anyone doing over 50 million revenue per year. You really want to create that early adopter group and who those champions are. So not just the key stakeholders that are going to be responsible for driving something forward and driving change forward, but also the key individuals within your organization that can become champions. So that could be some tech savvy field folks, or it could be some non-tech savvy field folks, and building them up into champions is so important. Work alongside the vendor, right? These technology providers, a lot of them, especially on the support side, do come from the industry. Use them. And if they haven't come from the industry, they've implemented technology before. They've likely implemented that specific technology for quite some time. They've seen, what is the best implementations and how to get everybody trained and up and running. They're also not going to know if your team is experiencing challenges unless you flag it to them, right? So making sure that you've built, you're hearing out your people, and you've got an easy way to get that information from the people using the software and technology up to the vendor and the technology provider, is so important, because these companies can help a lot. And then analyze the data collected in your new product. I mean, a lot of these products have open APIs, to not get into the weeds here, but there are many ways for you to extract this useful data within whatever system it is you purchased. There are a lot of like out of the box analytics, I'm sure, with a lot of these products, and a lot of ability to customize reports for sure. But there are also other ways to extract that data and get it into whatever analytics platform you're using if you are doing that kind of stuff. Analyzing that information is so important. It makes me think of a contractor that they adopted our technology, and then after 3 months, they started to identify some trends within the field and how the field was only ordering for just-in-time delivery for the most part, or there are key individuals that were doing that, and some individuals weren't doing that. They're planning ahead, and they were starting to see trends with how efficient the product or the project was being run, with how often they were ordering materials. So getting ahead of that, identifying the people who weren't doing their planning ahead of time based on the data that was in the system, allowed them to train up those people and drive better results on their projects. Now, when there is pushback, and look, there's always going to be pushback. There's always going to be one person, a handful of people that for whatever reason, they don't believe something is going to work, and they might have their reasons. They're going to have their reasons, in fact, because a lot of people have been burnt by technology, or they've been burnt by a bad implementation that just simply didn't work, and they didn't renew whatever platform they had. Understand what that pushback is. If you move forward with a solution, you have a challenge, you have a pain point that you're hoping to solve. Flagging the pushback is so important because you can identify it and get ahead of it, and in some cases leverage the provider to solve those problems, or come up with a solution that makes sense for them to move things forward. And then being able to track ROI is obviously important. Like at the end of the day, like again, you're going to want to save time and you're going to want to save money with whatever solution you're moving forward with. It's way easier to track the money saved than it is to track maybe the time savings saved. But kind of breaking down where you expected to see time savings, whether it was the field or specific persona, maybe purchasing, or your project management team, and understanding what they're doing before and how they're doing it now after using the platform is where you can get a good idea of what those time savings are. Now, time savings only matter if you're taking that time away from doing maybe a manual task or something, so that they can be doing something that's of higher value to your organization. So also understanding what those other activities are, and how because they have more time, they're able to do X, Y, and Z. That's another great way to kind of build out your ROI when you are analyzing your tech platform. Okay. These are just some lessons from some folks. And these are the trends that we've seen. Simplify everything. Simplify it for your field, make it easy to adopt. Part of that is the technology solution itself. The other part is how you're driving, adoption across the board. These are just some quotes. I'll read the first one here. The key to true adoption is constant follow-up. You need to spend more time with people who are struggling, be able to listen and identify true issues in their feedback, and do your best to solve them. When you're listening and actively listening to these people and understanding why there are challenges to doing something new, it builds a lot of trust within your organization, because both of you guys want, the same things. You want to, um, make it safer for your people in the field. You want to make it, easier for them to do certain things that they can be more productive driving, work in the field. Um, and you want to give these tools to them, but if they're struggling to adopt for whatever reason, understanding what that is and listening to them is how continue to get a buy-in across the board. Um, move on to the next one here. Positive peer in reinforcement is so key. Um, Someone said even for the most resistant users, if their coworkers like the product and talk about it positively, they will eventually do it, right? Everybody talks. So, and especially if, folks are on their own projects, they'll eventually get together and see you guys, at, the office for, whatever you guys do in terms of getting people back to the office, different events and everything. People get beers, after work if they're working on jobs in the same city. And these people are friends, and, a lot of companies act like one big family, right? And if there's something that I like and it's helping me, and it's really making a difference in my life, and also I'm seeing the benefits to what I'm doing, what I'm passionate about, people are going to listen, and people are going to want to do it as well. So that's why I think it's so important at the beginning to identify who, is going to immediately adopt this, but also who is going to it's going to be challenging for them, because once you get that person, that person that's had trouble, to making change or doing something new, once they're talking about it and once they're raving about it, use it, leverage it, right? Because that's when you're going to get 100% adoption across the board. All right, I'll read another one. I started rolling out everything out through our 74-year-old shop manager. I then told all the men in the field, if he can do it, you can do it, right? I also built trust by answering questions quickly, either by myself, peers, or the vendors, customer service team. So again, just another reason to identify the key stakeholders, the champions, the tech laggers, and focus on them, and use that to drive adoption. And at the end of the day, leadership is setting the tone for everything, right? So, if you've identified this pain point or challenge that you want to solve for, you know, uh, telling the field or the people adopting a new technology the reasons why you're making that change, is so important, because otherwise they're just going to complain about like doing something new and, learning something new. But if they actually understand the reason, the true meaning behind moving forward with something new, um, and even better if they've, understand that, another company has done this, in understanding where they were before and now where they are using that technology, is how you get buy-in. But at the end of the day, if this is something that, you want to change and fix within your organization, telling your team why, and that we are moving forward with this, and this is the new standard across the board, is extremely helpful, right? Instead of the, other approach, which is just like, hey, we got this new technology, like, it's great, like, use it. I think this is interesting. Honestly, the easy part was after we knew the team had been trained, we could easily tell them this was how we track work hours and cut paychecks. That got everyone doing it quickly. So if there is like, a facet of the technology that, touches what something like something that they really care about, like getting paid, like if they need to adopt something in order to get paid, or some other benefit, then they're going to be more inclined to adopt it quicker rather than later. And why does this matter? So, I mean, everyone knows this. Construction backlogs are at an all-time high. A lot of that work is in, manufacturing, onshoring, and some of the new bigger projects that are, coming back to the United States, which is amazing, and less so in maybe, other market sectors. But there's so much work out there. There's so much work out there, and we don't have the workforce to do all of this work. Um, you know, it, I run into this situation so often where I'm talking to a contractor and I ask them, can you take on all the projects that you would like to take on? The answer is no, pretty much every time. There's so much work out there that a lot of contractors can't even bid on the projects that they would like to bid on because they just don't have the workforce. And the workforce problem is a whole another animal, to tackle for this industry. And there are a lot of, schools of thoughts on how to make this change. One big change I think is that the younger generation, Gen Z, is coming into the trades. They're coming into the trades. They see artificial intelligence and all these other, new technologies that are out there that are disrupting banking and these other, white collar industries. And they're being realistic with themselves. And they're looking at construction and manufacturing as great opportunities to go into the workforce after high school or after their, college degree, and really make a big difference and start making great money right out of the gate compared to their peers. Um, and that's a major shift, right? So when you start thinking about this younger generation that's coming up, they're going to be coming up through the trades. They're going to start learning all of these new skilled trades and skills that are going to set them up well for the future. They're going to be key players in your organization. They're going to end up being the lifeblood of your organization in a short period of time. These people know technology. They know how to adopt technology really well. And they ultimately want technology. So there are a lot of contractors out there today that are using their tech stack that they built, that makes it, a lot easier for their people to do certain things, or, it empowers them to do great work for their company. Those are the companies that are retaining and getting some of the best talent in the industry. And everybody can do this play. Everyone can do it. So making sure that you're getting these younger generation of folks in the door and giving them the tools to succeed is so important. And the other thing is like to make your field staff more efficient. If there's a tool out there that makes it easier for your field to communicate with your office team, or makes it easier for them to install, whatever systems you guys are installing, or if it's a better way of getting materials, or it's a better way for your office to do paperwork and all the documentation that you need them to do. All of that saves time, right? And when you can save time, you can take on more of these projects, and you can move faster with delivering the product for your clients. This is just a slide on the industry as a whole. I think people know this, but manufacturing is coming onshore, right? So a lot of these new projects are mega projects, or even just manufacturing facilities that require a lot of skilled people in the trades to perform that type of work. Less so on the residential side. But there's a lot of commercial projects coming online for private education and colleges and private schools, and also public schools. So there's so much work out there right now, and figuring out useful ways to be more productive in the field, and more productive as an organization as a whole that drops money to the bottom line. That's what you're going to want to be looking for when you are looking for a solution. And that's it. So I did say we're going to leave a little bit of time for questions. I think we have 10 minutes left. This is my email in case you guys do want to email me directly on any questions that you guys might have. You guys might be implementing a new tech stack right now. I'd be happy to brainstorm with you and figure out ways to drive adoption across the board.
Thank you, Ryan, and thank you for everybody for joining us today. Ryan, you actually went a little bit over. We were trying to keep it at 30 minutes, but no worries on that.
Okay. Sorry
I did assign all the contractors on the call a number. So if you did want to draw a number 1 through 11 for the raffle for the Home Depot gift card, I'll let you pick that number, Joe, if you want to pick a number 1 through 11, and then I'll announce the winner.
Number 7.
All right. Number 7 is Phil Ryback of Battaglia Electric. Congrats, Phil and Ryan. Thank you so much for the gift card.
Thank you, guys.
Ryan, I got a question.
Yes.
How do you see AI playing a role in the technology we have today and in the future?
Yeah. I think right out of the gate, there are some things like right now, artificial intelligence is focused on language learning models, and less so like I'm not seeing it in like any robotics out there today. So I think if you can identify different areas within your business that could leverage LLMs, that's where you would like to start. Things that jump out to me: number one, contracts. Leveraging artificial intelligent models that understands construction contracts is really important, and likely the first domino to fall with AI in this industry. The next would be, I'm thinking back to my days as a project engineer. One thing that I would have to do often is write meeting minutes, write my RFIs, compile submittal packages and get them approved. I think number one, meeting minutes is a great situation for AI right now, where the technology that transcribes recordings has gotten so good to the point where you can start leveraging ChatGPT or Claude or some of these models to transcribe and summarize meeting minutes, that can be that can eliminate a lot of like time for somebody like a project engineer, or maybe somebody who's kind of working their way up to do a good job of documenting all that knowledge that came out of the meeting. They should be still taking notes during that meeting, but if they're able to record it, easily get that transcript, and then have an easy prompt that they could use to summarize and then ask the model more questions on the meeting. I think that's a great tool to use. I think you still need these project engineers to understand what they're asking if they're writing an RFI. I don't think there could be some good tools out there to ask the right question, then have them easily summarize the solution that they're proposing to the GC or the architect or whatever. And then I think everybody in this industry uses Microsoft for the most part. Everyone's using Microsoft 365. And Microsoft just released Copilot, which is a really interesting AI tool that can streamline a lot of their report building. They can summarize emails. They can help your project teams or project members write emails. Teams, you can summarize Teams meetings very easily. And diving into Copilot would be, the number one, probably the first thing I would look at if I were, business leader like yourself.
Well, thank you, Ryan. Great presentation.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you guys for joining.
All right. With that being said, we're going to conclude the meeting. Thank you, Ryan, again, and thank you, everyone, for hopping on. I hope everyone has a great day. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan.
Right.
Great.
Thank you.